on what I do, but also what you're doing in terms of analytics and how we could potentially make the package even more exciting for kids and families that are looking to just not only college but just looking to improve their games with all the information that's available. I mean, even today, again, watching Ryder Cup, and some of the guys are wearing these Whoop bands, and you could see what their heart rate is when they're about to hit one of the biggest putts in their lives, and it's kind of cool to see that kind of thing. So, yeah. So obviously, Melbourne. I know I'm getting to know very well. I live there maybe 4 or 5 months of the year. As I mentioned to Betty, we booked flights there today. We'll be there from mid-December to early May. So excited about that. Excited to miss the winter here in the US and have some sunshine and maybe catch a few matches at the AO. But yep, real quick, the first slide is going to be just really give everyone a little taste of what college tennis maybe feels like in terms of and how it works. All right. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good video the ITA put out, which is the International Tennis Association or Intercollegiate Tennis Association, a group, which I think is a good, just quick gives you a quick feel of what it's like to be in that environment. Um, so yeah, a little bit more about me for those of you that weren't here a few minutes ago. But I played college tennis at University of Georgia, which is Division 1. Was fortunate enough to have some success there as a team and as an individual player, which was you don't go to college. I don't think most people go to college, or I certainly didn't, expecting to win national titles, and I didn't even expect necessarily to turn pro. That was sort of just part of the journey that unfolded as I had some success. But um, really, I think that, which most people know, is that it's really the only place in the world that you can play at the level at this kind of level and still get an amazing degree, which of course is a backup, if not the driving factor, depends on what your goals are, to set yourself up for success later, whether that means turning pro for a few years like I did, or not turning pro and going on to get some amazing opportunities in work. Athletes in the US still have a huge edge when they're applying for jobs and things just because of their resume, which is essentially, again, if my resume is next to someone else's that didn't play collegiate sports, I can tell you, unless there's a big difference, they're always gonna, or I shouldn't say always, 99% of the time, gonna pick the athlete, just because they know that athlete, to be successful, had to have had some of the traits that really transfer perfectly over to being a successful teammate in business, leader, handle pressure, all the things that I think generally make people successful overall. Yeah, so here's a little bit just graphics. That was my team. We had some fantastic outfits and hairdos. Um, Michelle in particular, with the redhead with the curly big hair there. She's from South Africa. Hilarious. She was 2 in the world in juniors, and number 1 in the world was Jennifer Capriati. So she's a bit of a slacker, but we didn't hold that against her. So yeah, that I played Fed Cup for Norway. I know it's pretty obvious that I'm Norwegian, but at the end of the day, my mom is from Norway. I was born there. My dad's from Sri Lanka, so that's where maybe the twist comes in. But Caroline on the right side there, the one with the glasses on her hat, she played for Pepperdine and Berkeley. And ironically, I didn't realize that I started this job in 1995 when I played Fed Cup. I was in Turkey with her, and I knew the head coach at Pepperdine, and I literally called him from Turkey and said, "Hey, I have this girl on my team that's really good. I think you should take her on your team." And he literally gave her a scholarship over the phone, and she ended up at Pepperdine. She went for 2 years. She transferred to Berkeley, spent 2 years there with the Crown Prince of Norway, who graduated from Berkeley. So that was kind of funny. Apparently, he's kind of boring, but whatever. And yeah, there's me really, really nervous. That was a putt I needed to win that tournament. It was an extra hole. So I think my tennis background certainly helped me in that situation, and it's definitely fading away because I'm struggling more in my golf today than I was back then. Uh, then there's a picture again, just me coaching D1. As Emma mentioned, I coached D1 for 11 years. And I think something that I'm uncomfortable with, but that I'm getting a little bit better at doing is just kind of making it a differentiator. There's so many people doing what I do. More and more people are just waking up and going, "Hey, I can do this. It's good money or extra money or whatever you want to call it." I was a Division 1 head coach for 11 years. I wasn't a grad assistant. I was an assistant. So every decision that had to be made fell on my shoulders, and I certainly made some wrong decisions. Certainly won't deny that. But at the end of the day, it was me making the decisions that are going to drive every direction that we were going as a team or as a program. So I think that's a big differentiator between a lot of people, because when I was a D1 head coach, people like me were calling me or emailing me with players and telling me this is who you should take and this and that. And I found there was a lot of bad recommendations and information and bad fits. And that was a big driving factor into why I started doing this, because I wanted to help families not pick the wrong school for the wrong reasons. And there's a lot of reasons that happens. So again, this business that I started during COVID, because who doesn't want to start a business during COVID? What a great time to figure out something else to do when the world's shut down. Um, and really, it was because toward the last third of my time as a head coach, the biggest school I coached at was University of Wisconsin in Madison, which is a top 50 school in the world, top athletics, top academics, top facilities, top really everything. And I would say half the team that I had, and then probably about that percentage of overall athletes at the school, weren't really having a great experience. And it was hard to figure out. I was trying to figure out why. And what I learned through that reflection and time was, again, making decisions for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of pressure in today's world, whether it be financial, as some of you may know, and some of you will learn, US college is expensive, extremely expensive. And so a lot of the parents, especially American parents, spend a lot of money. We all spend a lot of money, but the expectation then is, we already spent all this money, so you have to go wherever you get a full scholarship, and we don't care if you like the school or if they like you, you're just going to go do it. And that's just a really bad recipe. And there's no reason, in my opinion, to make that decision that way, because there's thousands of schools. I learn about a new school literally every day. I don't pretend to know everything. I don't know every school. I don't know every coach. But what I do know is there's no good reason to choose a school for those for pressure, because of pressure or because of how much money was spent. We can find the right fit to check the right things, whether academics is a driving factor, whether your sport's a driving factor, whether location. I don't recommend location leading the charge, but if it really matters to you that it needs to be sunny every day, then that's what we try to figure out within those parameters. So my business is just me, myself, and I. So when I if I really mess up, it's on me, and I can't blame my assistant, or I could blame my cat, but he's not super involved with the process. So it's just I take it very seriously. It's not a side hustle. I don't do anything else. I don't work at a club. I'm not director of tennis. This is what I do full time. And so it's very important to me, again, because I've been on all sides of this. I've seen unhappy players as teammates. I've seen unhappy players as a coach. And the goal is to minimize that from happening. I can't promise it, but I could promise the percentages are going to be very good. So again, that's a picture from University of Georgia where I played. It is one of the I'm a little biased, I'm sure, but one of the best schools to play tennis at is just a school that has so much community and fan support, which is been built over many, many, many years, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for coaches and administrations and players. But um, so the challenges again are, I always one of the first questions I ask players and parents is like, what matters to you more, the tennis or the academics? And sometimes it's clearly tennis, and sometimes it's clearly academics, and sometimes and other times it's in between. And what matters most is the honesty about that, because that's going to be how where I start. So if someone's really academics are the driving factor, then that's going to dictate where I start and what direction I generally go in, obviously. So budget is another big one. Um, and I think that's why hiring people like me is important, because um, you can, Google things, you can talk to people that said or that played college tennis. Playing college tennis does not give you the information I think that I have, which is, 30 years around it in every direction. Um, I know coaches that coach certain ways. I know coaches that those do things above board. I know coaches that do things below board. And honestly, between myself and my network, if I don't know a coach, I have probably one degree of separation from that coach, so I can find out. Again, I could coach everyone on this talk, and I am not the best coach for everyone on this talk. I'm very clear about that. It's got to be a good fit, and that includes even hiring me. It has to be a good fit. So it starts with again, transparency and honesty, because my reputation's on the line. I'm not willing to jeopardize that, to inflate someone to a level that they shouldn't be, just to make it look good. Even if that means uh, that I could open that door. I'm pretty careful about, on all sides, respecting everyone's time and I'm raised in New York. I'm pretty straightforward. I'm raised by a Viking mom that makes me even more straightforward. So I'm pretty cut and dry when it comes to this stuff, and that's why the first thing I do is meet with the families and the kids and decide if it's a good fit and if you're comfortable with that honesty, to actually, because sometimes that's a little bit confronting. Um, Being an athlete it is a huge part of a healthy life, I think. There's so many things, especially today compared to when we were growing up, that you can get caught in that are not good pathways. And, with all the social media and all the ways you can have access to things that are not good for you. The bottom line is the time that sports take away from other things makes it less likely for you to get involved in those other things. And it's funny when I talk to clients all the time, and they're like, "Well, how much is there to do when you're not, outside of the tennis and school?" I'm like, "Good luck finding time to do anything else." Because when you're a college athlete, honestly, I went to Georgia again, hour and a half from Atlanta. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to go to Atlanta every weekend." I went to Atlanta once in 4 years. Because if I happen to have a free day or weekend, which would be miraculous, I was like staying in bed probably and like not watching Netflix because we didn't have Netflix, but whatever our version of Netflix or something was, that's what I was doing. Um, so again, as a map, this is sort of what I tell people. It is not cut and dry. There are, I have parents go, "Well, why is there a 6.5 playing for Berkeley?" Like, there's not a 6.5 playing for Berkeley. If somehow there's a 6.5 at Berkeley, they're not playing. I can promise you that. Maybe their parents are donating $100,000 a year to the school. I don't know, but I can tell you they're not playing. So this is sort of just a parameter of each of the divisions. So there's Division One. I don't know how familiar everyone is or isn't with this. So NCAA has three divisions: one, two, and three, and then and sorry, and then junior college. And then there's another thing called NAIA, which is equivalent in most ways to Division Two in terms of how they run things. It's just the governing body is just not the NCAA. It's called the NAIA, but very similar to D2. Um, and these are sort of what I tell people in terms of where you need to be. The big thing I need to remind people here is, if like my kids that are 2026 that are going to go to college next September, they need to be an 11.5 for D1 as a guy right now, not next August, September, because the coaches are signing kids a year ahead. So people are like, oh yeah, yeah, I think I'll be this UTR, blah blah blah. No, you have to be that UTR a year ahead, um, generally speaking. So keep that in mind just because you have one less year than it seems like you might have in terms of numbers. And again, this is just the steps I do. We talk about where we think you're at, what we think your level will be. We're not always right. We try to project. I help with all the entry requirements, paperwork if needed. Um, and then the other thing I really do offer that I don't know that I put in this PowerPoint is all the time that any kid I help is in college, I am available anytime for those years for free, period. Like if the kid has an issue with their roommate or their coach or whoever, sometimes it's great to call me because I'm not in the mix. I'm the safe person. And if maybe it's something they don't want to talk to their parents about, then I'm always here to help try to figure it out. And usually it's pretty easy to figure out, to be honest. Um, Here's just a little snapshot of the divisions, the number of teams, how many teams generally have on each roster. Again, this is not 100%, but pretty accurate. You'll see that women's teams, there are more women's teams than men's. And the men have to be aware that they're going to have to generally almost always pay more money than the women, and that's a whole nother story, but that's just a reality. So here's the men's snapshot. And I can send these graphics to anyone if they want them. Luke is a Aussie I helped recently. He just texted me literally, I think yesterday to catch up. He just did 2 years because he had already finished uni there at Melbourne. It was so fun to watch him, like look at him with the flag around him, and he was a huge part of that team and super fun. I work with a lot of Scandinavians, not surprising, I think, with my background in Norway. So this, I have a girl that just signed with Cal Poly, which is Southern California, there on the right. That was my first Norwegian client on the left, and another Norwegian who just started at Hamilton. I just saw a snap today or Instagram that he won the clinching match today for his school in his first team match. That was super fun. Um, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Nothing hopefully too complicated, but at the same time, as not rocket science as it is, it I do think people like me can make a big difference in the ultimate result in terms of your 4 years being really good, memorable ones, and or not. Um, so open it up, I guess, the questions or Emma or
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Tina. And I think at the end of the day, uh, what Tina brings, there's plenty of people out there that do this, and day in, day out, Tina is very dedicated. This is, her full-time job, and it's what she does. So she's very, very passionate about it. You heard she actually, just because her love of tennis and sport and competitiveness, she loves to follow how good the kids do as well, which is kind of cool. So, all right, kicking it off. Thank you for your first question. So I've got here in the chat box, at the end of the degree, Tina, is the qualification recognised in Australia? For example, nursing in USA, will it be recognised in Australia, or will more studies be required to obtain the recognition here? Maybe Betty or Tina, I'll open the floor. Tina, you first. What are your thoughts on that question?
it definitely depends on the degree. So in the US, I know like a physical therapist degree doesn't translate perfectly over to a physio. It doesn't require a ton more, but it would require a little bit more because the reality is physios actually, I don't want to say no more, but I guess they do probably no more than a PT here. Um, so obviously law degree is a whole nother story because law is law. If you get your law degree in New York and you move to California, you have to take extra stuff to get California law figured out. So it's not going to transfer over. I don't know, like, if you could do a law degree here, and if you were to go back to Australia, how much you would need to do, and that would probably vary um, from Victoria to New South Wales as well. Generally, most things, of course, business, anything like that, nursing, I'm sure wouldn't be clean cut. You get a nursing degree here and can go there just from that would be my gut. It's not going to be just 100% transferable. You might have to supplement. But that's something we would look into right away. We would talk to schools. in Australia, we talk to schools here about what that looks like. We get a
And I
good
will
idea.
just add that I transferred subjects that I did at Middle Tennessee State University back in the mid 90s, and they transferred directly back to Deakin University. And I had to do an extra 6 months to get my Bachelor of Science in my degree. So I had an extra 6 months of subjects, but I had a stack of subjects in the US that I could transfer and were ticked off at Deakin University. Betty, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, look, probably my personal experiences have, and a lot of the people on here I know, I have in the past taken a few college tours away, got to sort of understand the system a lot better through speaking to coaches. And interesting, I had many players that I took away who were, for example, below the 8 UTR level just, and that were stressing about getting into a Division 1 college, and that seemed to be their only focus. And the problem with that has been, and I'm quite lucky. I still maintain really good, working relationships with a lot of the players that I used to work with. So they still keep in touch with me when they're back in Melbourne. And a lot of their, I guess, what you need to understand is college tennis is competitive. I mean, Tina, you can obviously speak to that more, but it is extremely competitive. A lot of players that have come from here, gone to college, may not play number one on the team, but they're obviously getting a go. But the fit is not like what Tina's mentioned about the fit not maybe being the right fit for that player is something that seems to pop up quite a lot because they haven't done enough research. What seems to happen is they get offered a Division 1 college and they get very excited by that, but they haven't done enough research on the fact is the coach the right coach maybe for them? What is the team environment like? What will they gain out of that? Sometimes some of these Division 2 schools seem to be, just in my experience, Tina,
Mm.
from players that have gone to a Division 2, they seem to get a little bit more attention. And then they can obviously, I'd imagine they can transfer through their time in college. But my conversations with a lot of players have been around do your research, really speak to people like a Tina who actually understand, who have lived it, who have been there, part of that system. Because what seems to happen is a lot of recruiters go, well, yeah, found you a school, you're in, I don't know, you're in one of the coldest parts in America and they've just come from Melbourne winter and maybe that could be a factor, but generally it's the coach. We come from a culture of one-on-one environments here. And then when you go to college, you're part of a team. You have to know how to be part of a team, which is a great experience in itself, but it's also really connecting with the team and the coach and making sure that those things align with you. Because I've had a player that's played an intercollegiate event and had no business really getting a Division 1 college scholarship, but the coach saw them compete at a tournament and said, "We want you in our team." And all of a sudden, that kid got really excited, went to that college. But there's been positives in that, obviously, a lot of positives. But there's just but then they turn around and go, "Well, I don't know, I'm not getting a lot of input from that coach, for example." And then you might go to another college where that coach is definitely much more personal. So it really depends on what you're looking for. From my end, I would do exactly what Tina has said. You really just, I think, need to do your homework, really understand what it is that you need, um, what the player really needs to kind of be successful in college and make sure that their time there is positive and that they want to obviously go back and continue finishing off their degree. I think that's important. So that's pretty much from my end, and I'll speak a little bit later on, maybe Tina at the end, once everyone's asked their questions about sort of how we're trying to use stats to
Yeah.
enhance a little bit more of the profile of the player. So I can speak to that after, but yeah,
Well, yeah,
that was
the
just
other
my
thing I'd
two.
say is when people are like, "Oh, I want D1." Why? Why do you want D1? Do you know anything about what D1 means? D1 has nothing to do with tennis. D1 has to do with US college football and basketball and how big the school is. So whether I coached at a school that had no football team and I coached at the school with one of the biggest football teams in the nation. I played at school with one of the biggest football teams in the nation. It it doesn't impact tennis. In some ways, you could argue it impacts tennis in a negative way because when you have those big programs, you're not as important. If they don't, then tennis becomes a bigger sport than it was at most of these schools. So D1 has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with your experience as a player, what your tennis facilities look like, what your coaching looks like. I mean, the facilities at D3 programs are some of the best facilities in the world. D3 has sometimes a lot of money schools you're talking about like Williams, NYU, Johns Hopkins, Pomona, Pittsburgh, like the facilities are insane, way better than half the D1s. It's just D3, they care, for lack of a better way of putting it, they care about academics more. They're gonna let a kid skip practice if they're freaking out about an exam. D1, you're not skipping practice because you need to study. It's not gonna happen. So I find that people look at D1, D2 like this, like, instead of looking at it horizontally, they're looking at it vertically, like D1's better than D2. It's not. It's not. That's reality. Yeah.
So, Tina, could you explain exactly how the scholarships are divided amongst the divisions?
Yeah. So D1, the scholarships all are athletic. So they're going to care, not all of them. This is a blanket statement, a lot more about your tennis than who you are. It's like, we want the best player that's going to win the most matches, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, the good coaches hopefully care more, not only about that, but character and all that. And I think they do because they realize character can impact in a really bad way if it's not good. D2, your scholarship's coming from tennis and academics. So
Yeah.
you could get a full scholarship at D2, but you might say the school costs 60,000 a year and the coach gives you 40 and the school's giving you 20 for your academics, you're not paying out of pocket because the total is the full tuition. And it could be anywhere in between, right? And then D3 is a flip of D1. It's all academic money. So doesn't matter if you're Serena Williams, you can't get any money for tennis. It's all about your academics and a lot to do with financial aid. So D3 gives a ton of money based on your income. So for families that don't have a ton of money, you basically give in your financials and the school will come back and say, this is how much we can give you toward your schooling. I know that a girl went to Pomona Pitzer from Singapore. No, sorry, Philippines, doesn't matter, wherever. The school cost 75,000 a year. She paid five because financial aid gave her the rest. So, but that's all, it's called need-based aid, right? Like, so it's all need-based. MIT, if your family makes under $200,000 a year, they're paying full tuition for anyone that gets it. So,
Um, sorry, Tina, you go.
no, that's it.
I guess
So,
the one other, sorry, Emma.
so what about junior college and NAIA? Just to finish off
Sorry. The
the
junior
money.
college is the same setup as Division II, so it's academic and tennis. So you could get as much or as little as the full ride combined or anything in between. And then junior college is a 1 or 2 year pathway that's really good for players that either academically are not doing well, so their grades are stopping them from, or their results in school are stopping them from getting into schools that they want to go to. So they go to junior college. Junior college generally is pretty easy academically. They get to really get their academics sorted out. They keep their tennis at a high level or improve it, and then they transfer after 1 or 2 years to any of the other schools that we're talking about. Or you go there because your tennis level is not where you want it to be. You can go there, kind of coast in school, honestly. If you're a good student, it's not going to be very hard, and you can really get your tennis level up to go to the schools potentially that you wanted to go to that weren't willing to look at you then, if that makes sense.
So just staying on the money question, Tina, there's thank you in the chat box there. So what about out of pocket estimates, even with a full scholarship?
Full scholarship, there is no out of pocket other than your flights back and forth to home. The bigger schools, if you're getting these full rides at these Division 1s, I mean, most of the big schools have even an extra fund, like something happens in the family, like an emergency, they potentially will pay for your flights there and back if it's something like that. Um, and the bigger schools at the D1 level are giving you money called cost of attendance, so you're potentially getting $4,000 to $8,000 in cash in hand as well, but that's the high level D1.
Yeah.
Beyond that, honestly, for boys, I think you've got to expect to budget fairly 15 to 20,000 at least per year for a guy. For the girls, 10.
And that's US money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Australian. Okay, so out of pocket another 20 for
Now,
to cover
if
everything.
we
Sorry,
do
my
better
mic
than
was
that,
not
great.
working a second ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I apologize.
It's, I mean, look, I work with Norwegians and, recently she was like, oh, that's really expensive. I'm like, well, actually, the school's 70,000. They're telling you you're going to pay 25. That's pretty good discount. But the reality is that these schools, especially these bigger, again, this is a D1 school, George Mason, which is a school in Washington, D.C., huge research school. Like, it's kind of cost reward too, like return on investment, right? Like, so when you are an athlete at a school, some of these schools, the network that you walk away with in terms of your potential job opportunities when you walk out the door is pretty insane. The network's already pretty insane if you're a normal student at these schools, but when you add being an athlete, it's almost like you're skipping
Mm.
most of the process to get a job, a good job, because through the people that have already graduated, tennis in particular, tennis is a sport that has very academic focused people. So, guys and girls that played for the team 10 years ago are now working in banking and you want to be in banking, they're going to connect you right away. It's a pretty good way to skip all the steps that normal people have to take.
Betty, were you going to add something before I ask the next question?
Yeah, sorry, I'll let that next question come through. But one of the things that I get asked quite a lot, or probably get spoken to a lot, Tina, and you can maybe fill the gaps here, is so a lot of kids come back like the workload goes up. As we know, they're playing a lot more when they're over there than in comparison to what they're doing here, just because obviously the environment, they're competing nearly every week. Can you speak to sort of what that load looks like? Because I think it just gives parents and athletes an understanding of, hey, what should my body be preparing for once I get over there? Because it is going to be different. It's going
Yeah.
to be different in terms of the intensity. So I guess maybe just a typical day of training, like what would that look like?
I mean, it's going to vary a little bit from D1 to D3, but generally, a normal week at most schools will be at least 2 hours of playing, an hour of something else, conditioning, whether it's gym or running around a track or whatever they're doing. Uh, so minimum 3 hours, I would say 4 hours a day that are tennis related, sports psych, whatever, right? They have a cap at D1 for 20 hours a week. That's tricky because there's ways to be crafty around that as coaches. You have to be more careful today than you did back when I played. I didn't even know there was a rule, but apparently there was. Like, we didn't follow any rules. But um, the fall season again is usually like a D1 and I always get confused. D2, I think they do the same. But anyway, is all individual tournaments like that you play a ton in the fall season because it's all individual. So you're not playing Georgia versus Florida. You're playing a tournament where 10 teams are there and you're playing in draws. Like, so you're mixed into all kinds of draws and coaches just want you to play. So even if you get knocked out of the draw, then they do a compass draw and they put you into another match. They're just getting a ton of matches. So I think my freshman year of college, I played 32 matches in the fall.
Mhm.
Singles. That's just singles.
And that's probably, I think, again, coming from Australia, where the kids definitely don't compete anywhere near that much, I would say generally, unless you're sort of, internationally competing and you're playing everything, you're playing maybe at least two events a month. I think that's where just conditioning comes into it, is just having, I would say to parents, like making sure the physical aspect of your kids' side of things is in order, because you don't want to get over there and all of a sudden have these spike of an extra 3 hours of your day. And again, you're in a team environment, so you're not in that one-on-one situation. Just making sure your body's a little bit more resilient to that level of training and mentally preparing for that. Because this is it's a great life changing, I think, experience for a lot of athletes. They come back. I've had athletes come back and just compete better. Like, they're just tougher. They're not. They're learning to come back from a step down. A lot of the time they would just give in. Like, college teaches you, I know, a lot of ways and how to win, even if it's ugly. At that aspect of compete. You're competing for something bigger than yourself. So I think there's a lot of over the next couple of years, just making sure the physical side is looked after, because there is a spike in the amount of training that they will be doing.
Absolutely. And the one thing college taught me, the girl down the other end of the court was just as good as me. and who was going to win was who would be prepared to stay out on the court 1 minute longer. That's what college taught me, and it's a life lesson. So Luke's jumping in here. Great question. Outside of UTR, which Tina gets asked a lot of questions about the UTR number. So Tina, outside of UTR, what other things do coaches consider when selecting the athlete? And I'll add, how important is UTR number?
So again, it's every coach is different. I think if I were to generalize, it depends how many spots that coach needs that year. So if they need one kid, they're going to be a lot more careful and less willing probably to take on a project than a coach that has three spots that says, okay, I got the two guys and girls that I know are going to really be ready to go, and I'm going to take this kid because I think they have potential and I think I can develop them. So a lot of that's going to depend on what the program needs at that point in time and who they're losing, because every year generally you're losing players and replacing them. So that's what's become really even more competitive is this transfer portal. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's become way easier for kids to just ditch a program if they don't like it, which I don't particularly love the system, but I don't decide these things. But I think it's way too easy to ditch and dive just because you're not happy for your first week in school. You know, they're not forced to deal with any kind of adversity. But anyway, that's another story. So,
Well, that's why you're also on on the ground. You live in Colorado.
mhm.
So if you've had a number of situations where people have called you and said, "Hey, I've got this situation with the coach. How should I deal with it?" And you've actually it was a miscommunication. Is that not true?
Oh, 90%, it's just not
Yeah.
even miscommunication. There's no communication. I'm
Hmm.
like, did you tell the coach that? No. Well, that's probably a good idea for you to share because I'm sure they have no idea that you want to play and that maybe they don't realize how badly you want to play or they don't realize whatever.
Yeah.
It's usually very easily fixable. But again, so this transfer portal, what happens is if there's a guy or girl that's already spent 2 years at a school, they're a good player, but they're not happy or whatever, something goes wrong and they go into this portal. There's coaches now all have access to this portal to find a kid instead of taking that Aussie kid that they've never met that lives 8,000 miles away, you know, that they don't know and they don't have a clue what his or her level really is. Where this college kid for 2 years, they know their level because they've been competing for 2 years. So that's added to the competitiveness of getting these scholarships and openings. So it's tricky, very tricky.
That's why people like you are
Again, because
so
I've been in this world a long
important.
time. What?
I was just saying that's why having someone on the ground like yourself
Yeah,
is
and I think
so
lucky
important.
too. I get a lot of coaches calling or emailing me or texting saying, I just lost this kid or whatever. Do you have another kid? Um,
Yeah.
because I'm scrambling. The good
And
news for
the
us is you're one of the few countries in the world that has kids that can go in January. So
Mhm.
if they need a kid in January, like so right now is the heat of the season in the fall, right? Kids get injured or they get homesick and they fly home and the coach calls me like, holy cow, I just lost a kid. I need another kid for January and there's no Americans can come in January, no Europeans can come in January. So the pool is a lot smaller for who's available in January. And I tell Aussies this all the time. If you get a good offer in January, you should jump on it because if you think that offer is going to be there for you in August, unless you're some rock star, it's not going to be there because they have more time to find a different kid that's better. They're going to, you know, they're going to, they're more desperate for lack of a better word. That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't mean they're not going to love you when you get there as long as you do the right things, you know, and work hard. But like, you know, you take advantage of those doors that open because they close pretty quickly. I had that recently with a kid, got an offer that I don't even know how this offer was even on the table. In my opinion, the team level was way higher than this kid. I told him, oh my God, I was like, I don't even know if this is a typo. I was like, take the offer like now, like or this, like, and they didn't, and it's gone. Like it was gone 3 days later. The coach was like, oh, actually, you're not good enough, and so um until things are in on paper in ink, nothing's decided. So
so that's the only reason I got a scholarship. I went in January, so just kidding. course. Anyway, one more question, and then we've got over to Caritas in a minute for your hand raising. Thank you. Tina and Betty, you both played on the WTA tour. So, what role do colleges play in assisting WTA tournaments during the 4 years? Tina first.
That's all really honestly D1, right? So, and honestly, even D1, I've talked to so many coaches about this. There's no point bringing your whole team to a WTA tournament if everyone's going to lose first round except one kid. So if you have kids that are at that level, and it was discussed clearly that this is the goal of mine is to play after, and the only way I'm going to come to college is if I play tournaments, which I think is great because that way you hit the ground running when you turn pro. You're not scrambling to get points. To get into these tournaments, you might already have built up some WTA points to go right into things. But also at the same time, if most kids aren't ready to play WTA tournaments, but they will take you in the fall season. So that would be our fall, like that would be the August through December. If you're at that level, tons of schools will take kids and it's paid for. They bring the coach goes and blah 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 at the top schools.
Sorry, Tina, I've actually had an example. It's funny that this is brought up, but I obviously won't share who this is. But I have previously coached a player who went to college for about about a year and a half, honestly, and things didn't quite pan out in her team the way she wanted. So she thought, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go and play on the tour for a bit. But she has had a break now for a year and is maybe looking at going back to college and checking out if she's eligible because she's been offered a scholarship. But she's a player that's Division 1 who has got a world ranking. So it sounds like to me that at Division 1 they do have these opportunities where they're going to support players who obviously that's their main dream to get on the tour and compete. And I guess in some instances even pay for their weeks of travel on the road where they sometimes send a coach, I think, to a selected amount of tournaments. Mm-hmm. That has happened at Division 1. But again, as you said, it's such a fine marginal line between one player out of a team of 10, for example, that is done for. And it's, it just, again, it's a very much a Division 1 kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And
I think if that girl's trying to go back to school, she's going to lose D1 eligibility if she played pro for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
good to know. All right. We have a question from the audience. Caritas, you have the floor. You have the ball.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tina. So can you hear me though?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. With any scholarship, obviously it's a contract, right? So first question is it reviewed annually?
Depends on the school.
Yeah, okay. And then the next question is, what are the contributing factors? Because we are talking about a scholarship, so basically it's a contract, right? And there is responsibilities or accountability of the player themselves to maintain. So, what are some of the factors to maintain all of this? Is it the academic performance at certain level and the playing career performance at certain level? Can you give us some insights?
Yep. So academic is the big one. And that's the easiest way for a coach to get rid of a kid is if they don't meet standards academically. But honestly, like the standards are pretty low. Like, I mean, you have to really try hard to not meet the academic standards that's required. So
do they vary between D1, D2, D3 in terms of academic performance level?
I want to say to come over here to be cleared by the NCAA, you need a cumulative GPA of 2.6, which is like a C average, maybe even a C minus. I don't know. It's pretty. So that would be the big one. The rules are you can't get rid of a kid for their athletic ability. I think that's probably very hard to do now. Back when I played, they got rid of kids for any reason they wanted to, even though that was a rule. They're much more careful with that rule now. So it's way easier for a kid to break the contract than the school, to be honest.
Hey, if you break the contract, what is there any consequence? Like you have to pay back certain amount or whatever?
No. I mean, if you break it in the first semester they're not going to pay you're going to lose, like if you're paying anything, you're going to lose the money, any money that's left over. But no, like no, I mean, oh, again, these kind of things though, like if I'm helping you, it's the last thing we want to happen, right? Like that's not the situation we want. So when I have kids or parents go, well, what if we go here for a year and then we transfer? I mean, I'm not opposed to that if there's a really good reason to transfer, but I also don't love the idea of getting this coach to go out on a limb and get offer you something great and then you just ditch and dive because you found something better. I just think overall that's not a good recipe for everyone. Although if you outgrow a program and the coach knows that, like if you're just going there and you're just slaughtering everyone and it's really not helping your development, they're going to understand you need to find somewhere that's going to be better for your development if that's what's really important to you. But I don't love the idea of going into a contract with the idea that you already want to leave. You already have a plan to leave. Like I'd rather find you a place where that's not what we want to do, right? Like so, but essentially, the things that you could lose your scholarship for, like breaking team rules, obviously doing illegal things, academics. If you show up every day with a good attitude and work hard, you're not losing your scholarship,
Thanks.
whatever that is.
Just if anyone wants to unmute, just raise your hand and I'll throw you the ball. Got my AO.
You have to catch it though.
You have to catch it. You have to visually catch it. Con, you look like you might have
ready.
a question.
I'm ready for you.
I'm throwing it to Betty.
Yeah, please, if anyone has any questions to ask, this is your time. Like I said, there are no silly questions. This was really just put together because I really value Tina. I really value her honesty. If any of you know me and have been coached by me, you know that I'm generally trying to make sure that I'm honest. But yeah, please feel free. And if you don't feel comfortable, just write it in the messages. Probably the only thing I wanted to maybe mention towards the end here, and Tina, is just sort of letting people know that why, you and I have sort of started just trying to look at collaborating. My experiences with college, it's just really interesting that when I took these kids away to this college tour, I had a kid go, Betty, take my phone. I need to look really good. I said, what for? And he said, he's doing his hair and he's getting his strokes out, ready to go. And I'm like, what's going on? He said, I've got to take this video for this coach. He needs to watch me play. I'm like, so you want me to stand on the side of you where you look amazing, you look like $1 million, but we don't know if the ball's going in or out. So you're looking, basically an edited video of you looking amazing. So then it gets sent to these college coaches. They have a look at it and go, well, this kid has a great looking forehand. They have backhand, good look, whatever. They look good. Problem with that is that they have no idea how you compete. They have a look at maybe one result you may have had throughout the year. They have no idea who you are. They have no idea what your stats say. They have no idea how you play under pressure. And then you get there and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, that kid looked really good. I mean, why aren't they performing? Because as we know, there's more to performance than just hitting a forehand. So I sort of looked at that and I thought, well, I'm doing tennis stats. And the reason why I'm doing tennis stats, as a lot of you know, I've had 7 surgeries. Coaching, I'm doing it at a more minimalistic level. I still love it. I see myself more as a mentor, hoping that I can pass on advice that can help. But I'm passionate about stats because I did it for so long, working for Tennis Australia, and now I have the opportunity to take it further. And I am kind of blown away by the fact that coaches don't use this in this day and age to track players and their performance and how they can get better and be a little bit more objective about what's actually happening. Because, a player could have one bad match, but that shouldn't really summarize how they are as an athlete or a competitor. So with the stats, my idea with Tina was, well, could we profile players and go, well, I've profiled, generally I need 3 matches as an average to actually have a look at how they play. Whether it's practice, we know in Australia it's hard to kind of record, but even if it's practice matches, it is better than having a video of you hitting a ground stroke and going, here, this is this player. This gives them a better understanding of how does this player play? Where are their gaps? Where can they improve? What are they doing really well? What are their strengths? How can we utilize this player in our team? I can see they've got, they're a really good doubles player, or I can see that they've got a great transition game. We're actually giving them evidence. And over a course of the year, if you do 3 matches every 3 months, let's just say, or 4 months, you're creating a profile for the coach, and you are hopefully being valued by the right coaches in their team, going, well, we need a player like this. Instead of having a video that makes it's a very fake video and it's not really giving any information or details to the coach, the team, to you. It's not actually honoring you as a player and putting you in the right direction. So that was the reason I've come into this. And I don't really like to associate myself with anyone that I feel would jeopardize my own reputation as a human being. I mean, I'm pretty honest. But I just want to be able to give the right information. And obviously, most of the people on here I have spent a lot of time with.
Yep.
I've known Emma for a very, very long time. We've been friends for a very long time. She was actually my mentor. I learned how to coach young kids because of Emma, actually, back in my Epping days. But yeah, it's go Epping Con, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, this is the reason. There's no other reason. I'm doing this for other players who want this. I'm just passionate about stats. I really like breaking things down and being analytical and helping. And if I can help the people that are on this screen first, as they're the first and foremost people that I work with, that's brilliant. But yeah, I just don't like the whole coach sort of looking at a video and going, yeah, I'm going to take this player because they've got good ground strokes. It says nothing about mentality.
Add on to that, Betty. Imagine a college video with your statistics. Like, no one is doing that. So having a college video, which Tina can edit, Betty can put your stats on, that's a no-brainer, an organic fit for a video for a college coach. I think more college coaches are going to go, we need more of this for our own team. And just lastly, I will say that Tina, the other arm to what Tina does is a mentoring side of it. Her business is called Transition Coach for Athletes. So we know that in America, transitioning from middle school to high school, in Australia, transitioning from high school to college is a moment of time where they're stepping into their next self. And I really think that that's another add-on that Tina has. So with Betty's arm, the mentoring arm, plus you got the college placement. And I know that it is 4 minutes to 6. I know a few people have got to go. So I will just mention, of course, that we will definitely, anyone that's attended this call, she will guarantee. Oh, sorry, Tina.
I just want to answer this real quick. This between IB and VC, do they have preference with the selection process? Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't know if she had to go soon as well. IB is it like VC but just a different exam?
Yeah, would they look at it like, for the kids who do IB and the kids who do VCE? Would that make any difference?
When I started with Aussies, it was like one of those tough things to discuss. Because I'm not trying to say don't care about the VC or whatever. Obviously, you need to care about it and do the best you can and get your degree. But in the US, they don't look at that at all. What they look at is your GPA and your SAT score, which that's even not happening as much anymore. They're getting more common to be test optional. There's still schools that require it, so I still am telling my kids to take the SAT, but I would say the majority are test optional. But again, if they're looking at me and you, and I took the SAT and I did really well and you didn't, and everything else is pretty equal, then I might have the edge. So, but in terms of the VCE and any kind of those Aussie, like what's the Sydney one called, the H?
Yep. HSC.
Yeah, they don't look at it at all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So please go ahead, and if you want the slide deck, as Luke has asked for, just go ahead, put your email in the chat box, and happy to send you the slide deck. And what I was going to finish by saying that we appreciate everyone's time. And Tina's offer tonight is basically that your time is valuable. You've been on this call. So if you sign up with Tina after a free consultation with obviously the player, she's got to get to know, make sure it's the right fit. It's $500 off her normal cost of US college placement. So if you've attended this call, that's what she's guaranteed. I'm sure Betty, we're looking forward to putting the stats on the US college video. That is it's the way of the future. You'd be ahead of the game. I don't know anyone that's doing that. So I'm so excited about this collaboration. Sorry, Betty. Sorry, Tina.
No one's doing that. And I think, again, I hate to say this, but the reality is coaches, whether they're time poor or lazy or both, they don't want to like have to do a lot of work. Like they're busy and so if we just give them this stuff on a platter, we had a girl recently that I totally agree with the dad that she's a lot better than her numbers. She had COVID related illness for 2 years, blah, blah, all this stuff. If we had her stats, maybe that would change some of the coaches' opinions on her UTR, because her UTR is lower than, I 100% agree, it's lower than what I think her level is. But if we could show something different than just, again, the video, her video looks good, you know, all that stuff. But I think that that's the kind of thing that could tip the scales.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Tina and I and Betty will be back in Melbourne as of the 14th of December. My book is called What Makes a Great Coach. So if anyone wants to gift this to your coach, just buy me a
Great
coffee.
book, I have it.
I miss lattes. Buy me a coffee anywhere in Melbourne, and I will meet you with Tina. And of course, you can get a copy of this for your coach as a Christmas gift. It's Judy Murray did the foreword, and even Betty even features in the book, so it's not a bad little read. Shameless self-promotion. I've been out of Australia too long, so I apologize. Normally I'm not as bold. But who really cares? It's been wonderful spending our life with you. And Betty, honestly, you have the hugest heart, and we absolutely adore you. And yeah, this collaboration is a no-brainer. And thank you for allowing me to MC to you wonderful people. So please unmute yourself and everyone just say thank you.
Thanks everyone
No,
for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
it.
Thanks, families.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
your time.
you.
Appreciate
you.
everyone's time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Last minute question, Con? No, he's gone.
Tina, thanks heaps, hey?
Hey, thanks for putting together.
Well
Yeah,
done,
there was
Betty. That's a
there's
good
a few more
turnout.
people. Yeah, a few more people than I expected, actually. There was a couple of
Oh,
extras.
Paul didn't show up. Paul.
I
Paul, I
think
haven't texted.
I think he's on a flight to New Zealand.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah, he is. I think he's
Yeah.
on a flight to New Zealand. So
Well, I got
no,
Betty, the hardest thing for me as an MC, just and you'll laugh at this in your commentary. So I've got 5 emails there. Was just the pronunciation of anyone's
no.
Luke and Con.
No, it's well, there's a few of them are Slavic, which I'm accustomed to. But mate, you should have seen me in China when I had to pronounce these names. I was like phonetically practicing for about a whole day.
I was like SNEZA. What am I meant to say there?
Snez.
What do you call
That's Snez.
Yeah, you
When
called
you
it.
said it a couple of times at the start, and when I wanted to thank her for her question, and I'm like,
That's all right. Honestly, it was subtle. You didn't do it in a way that was made obvious, so it was all good. But I reckon I think they'll take a lot out of it. I think they need to digest it. The only 2 things I reckon, just a suggestion from my end as a coach. I don't know if it's worth putting in there, but I get a lot of things asked about,